I loved when we asked you, do you remember when it went wrong? You said, yeah, 16th of March, you were 16th of March 2011.
16th of March.
You can remember it right to the day. What happened?
It was at a stage where the profits of the business were absolutely nil, and between January and March of that particular year, we had to put our own money in just to keep the doors open. And we didn't have a lot of money to spare at that stage because of other circumstances, and we just had to close the doors. It was as simple as that.
There's nothing more you could do?
No. I mean, we went from a situation in 2003 where we had a very good business. I had 49 employees at one stage. And because no more than Joe over here, I got married very late in life. I was 43 when I got married, and my 3 kids arrived after that. We sold the business because I wanted to spend time with my kids. And between the financial advice we got from different people, we invested heavily into property, and pretty much all our money went into property at that stage, nobody ever thinking that there was going to be a big bust. So by 2008, obviously, the bust had started and everything started to collapse around us, and we lost everything. We are literally broke now.
Do you spend your time trying to keep it from the kids?
I think they'll...
Okay, relax. Look.
Our eldest girl kind of knows that there's something going on, but our 2 younger children, which are going 14 and going 12, we hide it as much as possible from them. It is very difficult.
Rosie, I'm sorry, I'm talking to Eddie's wife, Rosie now. Rosie, what do the kids ask? Where are we going on holidays?
Well, we are very lucky that we have family that are very good to us, and my sister has a place that we can use up in Portrush. We're blessed to have that, and we appreciate it. We have a brother that gives us turf and sticks, and we are surviving, and we have very good neighbours and network through schools with lifts and to football and stuff. But it is very, very hard. We're living week to week, and without the network of friends and neighbours and family, we would be gone. And Phoenix Group have saved us. We've come out of the Phoenix Group.
I'm looking forward to the Phoenix Group, but the Phoenix Group really have done a magnificent job. But listen, you've done a magnificent job yourself too. You're great parents. Well, that's tough going, and you're doing brilliant. So
I hope so, because we love them so much. But without the Phoenix, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be...
I think quite honestly, without Phoenix, we would be basket cases right now. Literally.
Well, I'll tell you this, listen, you're doing better than you think you're doing, and I love this little bit at the end, and because this is one of the things that I've been getting from reading all of your stories, is that there's a sense of hopelessness out there. It's not a question of nothing today.
I'm 61 years of age right now, and any jobs I ever apply for, I do it online nowadays because there's no point sending in letters to people. You do it online, you hope to get a response off them. But any response we do, which is probably 1 in about 100, will basically say the same thing, not suitable.
And that's age.
And that is age related. There's no question about that. If you go into any of the
major retail experience, you could make somebody a fortune out there.
We did very well in the retail when we were there, and we had our profit margins right, we had our variations right. Anybody in the retail trade knows what I'm talking about there. But you go into any of the major supermarkets, particularly the newer ones in the country right now, you will not see anybody over 50 working there.
No.
It just does not happen.
I know you went through the ups and downs, and you went through the depression, and you've come out the other end, and I have to tell you, you look absolutely fantastic, which is probably, again, you're putting on a show for me.
It's all the fresh air in the ball, believe you me.
That's what it is, yeah, all the fresh air you get when you're homeless. Yeah. Now, but I love this. You have a business idea that you don't think anybody else has, and that's what you think is the key to it.
When I was in the retail trade, it was the grocery retail trade.
Don't tell anybody now.
I won't tell anybody what the idea is, but the idea came to my head because I used to be looking at product that came into the country from outside the country. Right. And I always said to myself, why can't we produce that here? So I started trialling different products. And one product in particular came through as a gold mine, particularly. And right now I have everything I need except really the finance to get this off the ground.
And what kind of finance are you talking about?
It's going to be very small. It's going to be probably about 30,000 at most.
So if there's anybody out there with 30,000 to invest in your idea, you think this is a chance of getting off the ground?
I know so. I don't think so. I have approached all the major supermarkets and certain restaurants in the country, and they all come back with the same. The product is perfect. The product is top class.
Well, I tell you what, Eddie, I'm very, very lucky. I had a movie open this week, and it's going to make me a fortune.
You deserve
I'll put 30,000 quid in front of you and see if that idea works. And if it does work, no. But if it does work, Eddie, You're not to dip into it now and start going playing golf. But I'll put a few bob in front of you, and we'll see if we can make that idea work. And if we can make that idea work together, you being 61, me being 50-ish, we show that just exactly what two old men can do. All right, so Rosie, and you talk about that to yourselves. I want to go on. We're coming down to you now, Colette. I want to go on. Julie, Phoenix. People are talking about Phoenix, the Phoenix Project. First of all, for those who don't know, and at this stage I don't know if anybody doesn't know, tell me about the Phoenix. What does Phoenix Project do?
Hi, Brendan. Phoenix Project was formed in 2008 by a farmer and auctioneer in County Laois, William Pryor, who saw this level of upset that you're seeing here from ordinary people that he knew all his life.
Particularly outside the cities.
Well, everywhere, but I suppose in his own general area in particular. And it just, we've seen a little vignette of it, and it's very grateful to both Fionn and Eddie and Rosie for sharing their very deeply personal stories.
Well, you've got great reviews here, I'll tell you. Fantastic reviews.
But so it was formed to really try and help with the real mental distress and terror that people were experiencing. So basically, in the beginning, the focus was on the psychological side, but it soon became apparent that people were forced to look at their financials in great detail and their legal issues in great detail. So professional assistance was needed. So now Phoenix provides legal support, financial support, stress counselling, social welfare advice to people like these who've never been exposed to the social welfare system before.
And I know you're a solicitor, but how much do you charge for this?
It's free. It's completely free. And we are really, really grateful to some very ordinary people who are making huge donations to this service for the very same reason, that they empathise so much with people like these. And without the donations that we've got over the last 4 to 5 years, we would not be able to give the assistance. We've seen well above 20,000 people at this stage, 6,000 in the last year, and depending on their own ability to cope, we will manage their whole case through the banks for them.
And this is the thing, it's not a question that you have to have the worst possible story.
No.
Your story can be very, very slight, but in your eyes it's a big, big thing. So it's for anybody who's at any level of trouble, Phoenix is there for them.
With the banks. It's a mortgage arrears issue, and the main focus of Phoenix is to save the family home, because we're deeply concerned about the number of repossessions that are coming down the track. 1 in 5 family homes, we estimate, even looking at official statistics, are affected by mortgage arrears.
We don't have to say it, get in early too. Get into the banks as early as you possibly
can. Well,
can.
Even so, the banks are harder to deal with even when you get in early. It's a very impossible system, and it has become more so. In the early days, it was relationship banking, and you could still talk to the guy who gave you the loan. It has moved away to these call centre arrear support units that are actually really, really driving people crazy because they can't get through to them. So what you've got is very vulnerable, hurt people who are very silent about very personal issues, and they are actually being harassed in their own homes. And I don't want to overstate this, but this is how it is. And we're very concerned that the level of harassment and the way they're treated would be unacceptable in any other part of society and in any other issue that arises. You couldn't get away with the way people are treated in the workplace or in education. Or
how do people approach Phoenix?
We've got a low call number. It's 1850 20 30 40. We've got a website. It's www.phoenixproject.ie, and we're based just off the M7 at Junction 16 near Portlaoise. But it's accessible from the whole country, and we have people attend us from all over the country. It's entirely free of charge, and we hope to keep it going until this crisis is out of the way.
So all these advisors, all these solicitors, all this legal, it's all free.
It's all free.
Provided on a voluntary basis by
the mix of voluntary. We've got to obviously run a service and and a committed service. So to keep that going, we have to have paid staff as well.
And the paid staff is paid for by donations?
By donations.
So if you're out there, A, and you want to volunteer, please contact Phoenix.
Yes.
B, if you want to donate. And
please, yes.
There's no such thing as a small donation. Any donation.
Every donation is welcome, and we have to keep the service going until family homes are saved, because we're looking at up to 70,000 Irish family homes being repossessed. And in this last year, repossessions have ramped up hugely. Week on week now, I have more and more people coming into me with civil bills for court. And in the coming week, I'm looking at one person losing their family home. The sheriff is turning up next week in West Dublin. I have another farmer losing his family farm in the west of Ireland. And I actually have to go and talk to his health professionals to help them explain to him how to deal with losing a family farm from 5 generations. I actually have to travel to the west to go through that process.
My instant reaction, as I'm sure everybody who's listening's reaction is, 70,000 repossessions. We can't let that happen.
We can't. No, we cannot.
Is there Is there anything we can do?
Well, right from the beginning of this problem, the government put together 2 different committees who looked at all the possibilities. You know, we addressed the fact that this problem was coming down the track by putting these committees in place, the Keane Committee and the Cooney Committee. They made recommendations of types of products that could be put in place to resolve this. There were 3 codes of conduct introduced by the central bank to try and deal with this. The personal insolvency system has been introduced, but the banks veto everything. That's the problem. And the banks are running this, as banks would, as a debt collection system, with no reference to the fact that people's family homes are in the mix.
I want to go into the reaction to banks a bit more, because we're not hearing enough about that, but I'm going to do it as soon as we take a break. We're going to take a little break. Everybody take a glass of water and relax, and we'll come back after the break. Welcome back, and you're joining us here in Studio 8 or 6, where Rachel, the researcher for Marian, is here flipping through cards and she doesn't know what is going on. Thanks very much, Rachel. Cuivany Langan, I'm going to come back to talk about the Phoenix, and because I actually get annoyed that Phoenix they're doing such a wonderful job, but they're doing the job that we elect other people to do, and we pay them to do. So I'll come back to you on that. Eva, tell me your story. Your story is very interesting.
Well, I feel a bit of a charlatan compared to everybody else here. My story is slightly different in that, very different, for example, from Joe's story, in that I don't have to go out looking for work on a constant basis, not knowing what's coming up. I'm lucky enough to have a permanent job. I work here in RTE. I would earn probably, the national average wage is €36,000 a year, and I would earn well over that. I should be comfortable. I should be able to afford my own home to live in. I bought a house in 2007, which I've lost because we all know what happened to people who bought houses in 2007. I've been renting since, because any money I had was obliterated through that house and what happened with it.
Renting has gone crazy.
Renting, I was evicted recently. I was in a reasonably priced apartment till that point, and now I found myself in a very hostile rental market, and I'm not able to afford rents anymore.
So where do you live?
I've moved back in with my mother, with my teenage son.
Oh dear.
So, yeah. No, but I mean, in my case, I need to make very, very clear, I am not in a case of hardship purely because of my mother. There's so many other single parents out there who work full time, who, it's really highlighted the issue in my eyes, what happens to those parents who don't have money to live in.
I think what it is it's not the fact that, I mean, you're not as bad as a lot of people out there who are living in cars or in cardboard boxes.
No, absolutely not.
But you are in a position where you can't stand on your own 2 feet.
Absolutely.
Even though you've got a pretty good job.
I have a very good job, and I think it's indicative that there's a massive failure in society that somebody who earns well over the national average cannot afford an apartment. If you have a child, you have to rent a 2-bed. You can't rent a 1-bed with a teenage son.
Yes.
And it's indicative of a society where something is massively wrong if you can't afford rent. The average rent in Dublin at the moment is €1,227. Now that's across the board. That's for 1-bedroom bed sits, everything in the mix. So when you're looking at a 2-bed, the Dublin average must be much higher than that. Yeah. In the rest of the country, it's €637 a month. So people in Dublin are being absolutely hammered. It's impossible to live on one salary renting a place in Dublin at the moment. I don't know how people are doing it.
And if you've got a young child, you can't commute. You can't go down to Port Arlington and commute up and down and then do school runs. And
absolutely. I've spoken out about this in I wrote a couple of articles about it, and I've been on the radio before about it, and I was kind of hammered by people saying, oh, why doesn't she, cop onto herself and move out to Tyrrellstown or something? And I do understand that point of view of somebody who doesn't live in the... There's nothing wrong with Tyrrellstown.
No, that's all right. Just don't push it.
But there's a practicality issue that perhaps people don't realise. If you have a child, you can't in all consciousness leave a 13-year-old son who could be doing anything in an apartment on his own for all hours of the day. I work very long hours. He needs to be surrounded by some family. He needs to have some sort of a support network there for him.
And this is the kind of thing I'm trying to talk about, is that we're not talking about people who just have no money or have no job. You have a job, you're well paid, you're working for a state organisation, and you still can't afford to move out of your mother's with your son.
I have to be clear, in my particular case, I could just about afford it, but I would be, like Fionn said, scraping at the end of the month to get the bus fare for the child to go to school, and I feel I'll never get anywhere in my life, and luckily I have the backup that my mother can take me into the house. People who are earning, single parents who have chosen to work rather than be completely supported
by the state.
By the state, and I'm not criticising them either. I have to be very clear on that.
No, we understand that.
Single parents who are out there working and in the private rental sector are being absolutely hammered at the moment.
They sure are. And you know what? This homelessness, being out of accommodation. Everybody's out there thinking, well, this couldn't happen to me. You'd be surprised how quickly it can happen. And Tamara Kearns, Tamara, how are you? Tamara,
thanks.
Halloween last year, you were, pre-Halloween last year, you were living in your home and everything was hunky-dory. What happened?
We fell behind on our rent and...
Well, what, 6 months, a year?
A month.
A month?
A month.
A month?
Yeah.
All right. We're waiting in the garden for you, Mr. Rent.
And we fell behind, and look, everything just kind of came in on top of us at the one time, and just, we basically had to move out then. So we found ourselves in a position where we didn't know where to go, didn't have anywhere else to go, couldn't rely on family because as it is, they're already strained. So we declared ourselves homeless, and we had to go into the place where they declare yourself homeless with all our bags and our kids, and just demoralise ourselves.
Nowhere to go?
Nowhere to go.
So what did they do? Where did you head to from there?
Well, they had to wait for a while anyway to see if they had a room for us, and they eventually were able to put us up in the Bewley's Hotel up at the end of the M50, and we spent 2 weeks in a family room, no car, school, work to go to. No.
And were the kids still in their old school?
Yes.
And where was their old school?
In Finglas.
So you'd go from Longford or from Newlands Cross to Finglas to go to school?
40-minute walk.
What about
to
the babies?
Bus stop.
Cooking facilities, feeding the babies?
Nothing at all.
No cooking facilities?
Nothing at all. I had to sneak a microwave into the room just to kind of, do something. I know. But no, we basically just had to make do. We had very little money to stretch, but we done it, thankfully. And then on Halloween night, they moved us out to a 2-bedroom apartment in Crumlin. It's owned by the Homeless Services, so it's in no way suitable.
The Homeless Services, is that a state organisation?
Yes, yeah, it's Dublin City Council.
Right.
So we basically had to move my daughter's school as well, and then again the transport for work and going across the city by bike. My husband wasn't.
So and all this came across not because your husband's out unemployed.
No.
Just because the factory he worked in, he got his hours cut, so that reduced his money. So just because of a reduction in wage, all of a sudden you're homeless in the space of 1 month.
Yeah.
£29 for the accommodation you're in now?
Yeah.
How are you doing there?
Yeah, we're getting by. We don't really spend too much time there. What can you say about how you're doing?
No, the reason I ask is because at the bottom of that you have, and we consider ourselves very lucky.
Well, we are, because there's people in rooms in hotels and they don't have cooking facilities. We have that, and I suppose you've got to look at the good parts of things, because if you let things bring you down, you're going to get really down on yourself.
This is why I love Dublin people. That was exactly my mum's attitude. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to go up to Anthony Flynn, and you're the inner city helping the homeless. You release homeless figures to the media.
We're basically our outreach services work throughout the week in Dublin streets and come across homeless people.
Well, first of all, what are the figures?
At the moment, Thursday night's run this week came in at 154 rough sleepers on the streets of Dublin. On Wednesday night's run came in at 132 rough sleepers on the streets of Dublin. So we've seen a steady growth every week on week in those figures. 154 was the highest recorded number of rough sleepers that has been publicised anyway throughout the media. So there was a startling reaction to those figures over the last 2 weeks. People are shocked and amazed that there's.
Are we talking from all walks of life, families?
Brendan, if you're walking the streets of Dublin, we don't come out onto the streets till 11 o'clock at night, and we come off the streets between 2 and 3 a.m.
Right. So
you're talking about, we have a 17-year-old young lad on Dame Street at the moment that can't access services. We have a 72-year-old woman in Store Street Garda Station on Thursday night. We've a 33-year-old painter that we've interacted with over the week that was lost his job through the current financial climate, lost his accommodation, his house, and he's on the streets now because he can't claim financial assistance. He can't get in to get rent allowance, or he can't get landlord to accept the rent allowance for him. So the stories that we're seeing out there week on week are just unreal.
It's funny, you'd be surprised how many people think that a lot of homeless people are there for choice.
No, definitely not. We would say that a lot of people that are out there. There are people out there that choose to be out there, but there are a lot of people out there that are basically, they've nowhere to go. They're accessing services throughout the day, be it for food or advice or support, and then at night time they're bedding down on the streets of Dublin because they've nowhere to go.
Well, thank God for you. And I have to tell, for those of you that are at home that don't know this, Anthony's, you're one of the Dublin heroes. You really are. Anthony Flynn started as a barman, and on the way home one night at 2 a.m. he realised such a rise there was in homelessness, and he came up with this idea on Facebook, and ideas to distribute food, soup, sleeping bags, etc. to the homeless, and it grew from there. Anthony, I swear to God, you really are one of Dublin's heroes.
We've in excess now. There was 4 of us at the start. To start this off, it was a small idea that grew, and it grew into something absolutely unbelievable. We've over 100 volunteers involved, and it's a completely volunteer-led organisation. So everybody that's out there on the streets, our people in the offices, everyone's a volunteer. And you know, the support that we're seeing coming from people that arrive at our offices with food, with clothing, with sleeping bags. You know, there's a major decline in what's going on in the city, but people are still coming into us and saying to us, look, I have ham, I have cheese, go out and feed the people, or I can give you.
Well, the 100 volunteers and yourself should be very, very proud of yourselves, and thank you for doing it, what we should be doing ourselves. Brendan Dempsey, BIA charity.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about BIA.
Well, BIA is an idea that grew from 3 years of very hard work by the Society of St Vincent de Paul in Cork, where we started collecting food from wholesalers, retailers and producers and passing it on to those who needed it. Last year we actually handled 300 tonnes of food in Cork.
And where does that come from?
It comes from a lot of it.
The reason I know it comes from the wholesalers.
Yeah.
Why would the wholesalers give you food? Is it just like borderline out of date, or
borderline coming out, starting to go out of date, or they produce something that's perhaps slightly underweight
or different,
and they'd have to dump it, which means that they'd have to dig a 25-foot hole and drop it into it. We handled 300 tonnes last year. We can't handle it anymore. It's getting too big for us. So BIA is a professional new charity operating out of a 10,000 square foot warehouse in Little Island.
Well, Brendan, I want to know a lot more about that. I also want to talk to some other people. But before that, why don't we take a break for the news and the Angelus? And during the Angelus, we'll all say a little prayer for those people who are trying to help everybody. Hello and welcome. Oh, sorry, no, that was Marian. Hello and welcome back to Marian Finucan Show. It's Brendan O'Carroll standing in for Marian. Before the break and before the Angelus, we were talking to Brendan Dempsey of BIA Charity, and he explained that they collect food from wholesalers, etc., etc. Yes. How many are you feeding at the moment, Brendan?
Well, we're giving the penny dinners in Cork, which is like Brother Kevin's in Dublin. Last week they fed about 1,600 meals for the week. We're supplying food to, of course, Vincent de Paul, of which I'm a member. Vincent de Paul will be dealing with approximately 5,000 families in Cork each week. We help Simon. We help about 15 different charities in Cork we're supplying the food to.
A couple of stories that I wanted you to tell. I know you come across people who haven't eaten in 60 hours. That's absolutely dreadful. But tell me the story about delivering a box of food one night to a house.
Well, it happened about 3 years ago. 2 of us as Vincent de Paul volunteers went to a house. It was the granny, for various reasons, as the granny was rearing the kids.
That happens.
You haven't seen poverty. You don't understand poverty till you see children getting excited over groceries, you know. We brought in a box of groceries that night, and there was I put them up on the table. And a little girl, she was about 8 years of age, and she knelt up on the chair and leant in over the box, and very excitedly she said, Granny, Granny, will you make the porridge?
She saw porridge.
Yeah.
She got excited.
That was about 9:30, 10 at night.
Oh my God. A child getting excited over porridge. Sounds like Oliver. Okay, you're also coming across at this stage grandparents who are propping up their
grandparents
with their own savings.
Grandparents are giving a lot of their pension to the daughter or the daughter-in-law to keep that family going, and they're suffering themselves.
Brendan, that's Corkish.
Yes.
Neil Garvey is a CEO of Muntinatira. Rural Ireland is really suffering. Older people, older families, real problems, fuel poverty in the country, a great sense of shame everywhere. they're trying to keep it hidden in the local community, Neil.
That's true, Brendan, yes. We're the National Association for Community Development, so we try and help communities help themselves. And we have over 1,000 groups out there around the country, mainly rural-based. So we're seeing a lot on the ground. And an issue maybe that hasn't come up here yet, despite all the issues, is the issue of the living standards of elderly people that are living possibly alone in isolated areas with houses. Now, these are not houses that are going to be repossessed, but these are houses that are falling down around them.
Yeah. Tell me this. One of the things you said, and I thought, the new poor are living off cornflakes and beans.
It can happen, yeah. I mean, you've heard the stories here today. The end of the week, the last few days, that can happen.
We have this picture in our heads in Dublin that rural communities wouldn't suffer as bad because they'd be much more of a community, but there seems to be, they're not telling each other.
No, that's true. And you're right to a certain extent. You probably won't see as much physical evidence of homelessness in a rural area, for instance, but you will have people living in conditions that wouldn't be tolerated anywhere else. And as you say, they're not telling each other. There's a sense of pride. There's a fear, maybe, of getting people involved. People can be very possessive of their home places. And these things come together, and people aren't talking about it. When they do talk about it, there are solutions. So I think that's the key here, to get people talking to their neighbours, to community groups.
Well, I'll tell you, all the voluntary groups that we talked to this morning, thank you, Neil, are all doing an amazing job, and doing a job, as I said earlier on, that I think politicians should be doing. Now, I have two political hopefuls with me, John Garrity and Oisin Quinn. Joan, I know it was a traumatic experience for you not winning the seat. That nearly tore your heart out. But is this the kind of thing, when you were campaigning, is this what you were hearing on the doorsteps?
That's correct, Brendan, and thank you very much for that. And absolutely, this is the stuff I was hearing on the doorsteps and seeing and feeling and still coming across, thankfully, because I work in citizen information on a daily basis. But basically, I did think that the tone of your show today was going to make everybody feel hopeless about the country, because that is what you hear on the doorsteps. But there's so much within people, and every third or fourth person here that you've come across today have lifted the rest of us in the room, not least yourself, with your fantastic gesture for the couple there from Tipperary, and I wish them the very best of luck with that. My point would be that there are, within us as a people, we can get ourselves back.
And I think the people here, the one thing that I was expecting this morning that I don't see is that sense of hopelessness. It's not everybody has hope here. Everybody thinks that they can make things change. But I want to talk to you specifically about, you ran for election. Did you think you could change this?
I thought that I could help people with the information that they need to help themselves. And that's exactly what I am doing in my work anyway in citizen information. So I feel, okay, I tried to be a politician and maybe I'm not meant to be. I don't know. I'll still stay in the loop and I'm still going to continue working to help people. But what I've learned is the social welfare system, don't be ashamed. It's there. It's a support. I know it inside out at this stage. Well, Job Seekers Allowance is available to people who are self-employed as well. If you don't have enough money in your household, there is money there to support you. And until the government creates the jobs that are going to bring people back, the state is going to have to continue supporting people, and not a penny can be taken off social welfare until the job stimulus package.
Well, I know you're saying that, but I don't hear that here. There's people here who are absolutely desperate and don't know where to get. But thanks to people like the Phoenix Project, St. Vincent de Paul, and Montenatir, etc., and they are getting some help. Oisin, you grew up with politics. I mean, you were bottle fed in the doll. So you're this is Oisin Quinn I'm talking to now. Oisin, you come from a position where it's nearly your fault.
Well, I suppose Labour is in government and we had a really bad election. I spent the last year being the Lord Mayor of Dublin, and you could see in certain areas, in certain sectors, there was huge growth, huge rise in property values, lots of jobs in the new technology, social media sector, lots of restaurants doing really well, but a huge part of the city did not feel that they were going to benefit from that.
And it's all in this room here right now.
Yeah, and the government wasn't doing anything, I suppose, to explain to people and to actually address the fact that people weren't benefiting from it. And I suppose the other thing is, while the government did a piece of work doing what the Troika told them to do, solving bank debt, they didn't solve personal debt, and we didn't change the system where property has become commodified.
Are they not linked? I mean, we talk about bank debt and personal debt. The bank debt, the personal debt is owed to the banks.
Yeah, exactly. But we did a big job of sorting out the banks, but not sorting out personal solvency. So we hear stories, and we heard some of them today. People got into a lot of debt and they feel trapped by it, and that hasn't been fixed.
But okay, let's just take it back to driving along in your car on your own with your own thoughts. You know, Labour, and I am a member of the Labour Party, I have to point it out to anybody who's listening. Labour went in with so much promise, and yet now seem to be in the position where Fine Gael make the rules and Labour defend them. Do you get embarrassed?
Well, I'm frustrated that the government didn't do more, and they still will have another 18 months, but I think, a lot of time has passed. But one thing I really pushed hard for during the year, and it didn't happen, was to get away from property being like an investment and a commodity. And we see now, people being thrown out of rental properties so landlords can put rents up. We see a huge rise in property prices in Dublin, and nothing's been done to change housing into just something that is for people there to provide a need, regulating rents, regulating housing prices, increasing the supply. There's lots of ideas on that.
I can hear you. Yeah. I can hear you, but I don't see it happening, and I don't see it being done. Look, thank you, Oisin, for joining us. Joan, you said earlier on that you thought you maybe not meant to be a politician. Believe me, go for election again. You wouldn't be the first person in there that's a politician that wasn't meant to be a politician. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to take a break. After the break, I'm going back to the studio where we continue on with the show. We've got lots more stuff coming up. But all of you here this morning, you've been very, very brave. I really appreciate you talking to us. I know that sense of shame that you've all said you felt. You have no need to be ashamed at all. You're doing absolutely fantastic.